the population frightened enough to keep them in office. And it went on right through the 80s. 1988, George Bush was able to get elected by just pulling a straight race card. Willie Horton, black criminal, is going to rape your sister unless I get elected. Hinted, it wasn't said in those words, but it was so close to the surface you couldn't miss it. Crime, people were terrified about crime. They were terrified about drugs. One thing after another. These are all problems, but they're no different than any other industrial country. And the United States has a level of security that's just beyond what anybody can even dream of. But the population is it's a very frightened population. This goes way back. It's easy to scare people. Worked in the 80s. They're doing exactly the same thing now. And it did succeed in building up enough support so that even though opposition to the war is enormous, and in fact it's never been this high, it was enough to sort of give them some kind of basis to go to war. That's an impressive achievement, and it also frightens people, very much frightens them. I mean, today in the New York Times, you can, there's a big page showing pictures of Marines and others explaining why they want to go to war with Iraq and kill Iraqis. It's because they remember 9/11. Okay, now, somebody's watching this anywhere else in the world, they can only conclude one of two things. Either this country is so fanatically racist that if some Arab did something to you, you want to kill all Arabs. I mean, it's a level of racism that's pretty hard to imagine. Either that, or the country is so deeply indoctrinated that people believe what is clearly total nonsense. You can ask the editors of the New York Times which of those two messages they're trying to convey, but it's got to be one or the other. I can't think of a third interpretation. Okay, that frightens people. Let's go on. Congress in October did pass a resolution authorizing the government to use violence. I should stop. Yeah, okay. Pardon? Yeah, I'm going to. Okay, one more minute and then I'll stop. No, she's right. They passed the I'll be like 1 minute. Yeah. Passed the. You can ask questions. Yeah, we'll go on with other stuff. They passed a resolution authorizing force because of the threat posed by Iraq to the security of the United States. Virtually the 1985 national emergency reiterated annually about Nicaragua. And it goes on from there. I mean, a lot of pretty awful things happened in the next month or two. My dear leader tells me I shouldn't go on to talk about them, but they're worth knowing about. One more minute. Let me just run through a few things that happened in October. I mean, these are things that were either not reported here or barely reported. You can figure out for yourself how much you read about them. In October, there was a retrospective meeting, the 40th anniversary meeting of the missile crisis, Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. It was attended by key participants, high-level participants in the U.S., Russia, and Cuba. They knew at the time that it was a very dangerous period, the most dangerous moment in history. Kennedy's advisor, Arthur Schlesinger, described it as. What they found out last October just blew their minds. It turned out that the world was literally one word away from what would have been a terminal nuclear war. It was that close. Two Russian submarines were they discovered that Russian submarines had been under attack by U.S. destroyers. The submarine commanders thought a war was on, meaning a nuclear war. They had nuclear-tipped missiles, and two of the commanders ordered them sent off, which would have led to a devastating nuclear response, wipe out Moscow. They respond by wiping out New York, and in a couple of minutes it's all over. The Eisenhower had warned even before that a nuclear war would destroy the Northern Hemisphere. It's not a joke. It was, why didn't it happen? Well, a third Russian submarine commander countermanded the order. That's That's why we're around to talk about it. It was that close. Furthermore, all of this is extremely timely. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the result of a campaign of international terrorism that the United States was waging in order to achieve what's now called regime change in Cuba. Same notions that are right in the headlines now. Quite a discovery. I mean, the fact that that isn't blaring headlines all over the place is pretty shocking. I don't think it was even reported here. You can check and see. Shortly after that, the UN passed two major resolutions, late October 23rd. One of them reaffirmed the 1925 treaty banning biological weapons. The second strengthened the Outer Space Treaty to ban emplacement of lethal weapons in outer space. Okay, those weren't reported at all in the United States, at least according to a database check done by a friend of mine. Why? The United States voted against them. It voted against a reaffirmation of the 1925 treaty banning biological weapons and against the treaty banning placing of weapons in outer space. U.S. alone voted against them. Israel voted with the U.S., but that's reflexive. It's like the Ukraine voting with Russia back in the old days. That's unilateral, therefore it doesn't get reported. Is that important these days? You know, a treaty banning biological weapons or banning the placement of lethal weapons in outer space, which are likely to do us all in. Yeah, really important. Important enough so that the press understands that it's much better that citizens not know about this. Much too dangerous if they do know. And you don't unless you really go to exotic sources. Shortly after that, the Bush administration unilaterally terminated negotiations on a treaty to put enforcement mechanisms into a bioweapons treaty. There is such a treaty, but has no enforcement procedures. The Europeans and others are trying to put in enforcement procedures. At the last minute, the Bush administration told them, you're not going to do it. And in fact, there won't be any more discussion of it for at least 4 years. It's the next thing that happened. Then we go on to the war. There's plenty, with that going on, there's plenty of background for the fear and the hatred, which is enormous. International polls are just shocking on this. I won't go through them because there's lack of time. They're mostly not reported, but they're dramatic. Well, you know, again, going back to that observer from outer space, assuming that, I think outer space people are supposed to be male, so I'll call him him, assuming that he has some concern for the human species, he must be wondering with amazement how long a free people are going to allow this to go on. And the answer is not very long.